Okay, so we are here live in Cultivo de Consciencia. The translation would be awareness cultivation, my podcast for Latin speaking countries or Spanish speaking countries. And I have here an amazing guest, is Joanne. This is uh, my first podcast with somebody that is speaking English. It's actually my first interview with somebody. I always have a podcast where I just talk to myself, you know. But what Joanne is doing her work in the UK and in the world, because she's worldwide and through YouTube and her social media. I found her like really, really, really not just interesting, but are really an important voice right now in the world for something that we really should be paying attention to. And this is fascia. So, Joanne, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you,
I'm
Drew.
very happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And I'm very excited. So, I mean, I really want to just to have a juicy talk more than a very formal interview. I want for both of us, for the fascia to lead the way, you know,
Yeah, I
lead the
get it.
conversation. So, just for starting the engines here, what brought you here to this point of sending this message? What's your background, etc.? I don't know really.
Well, it's quite curious. I think I very deeply believe that we're spiritual creatures having a human experience. And I think if I can call it spirit, whatever that means to you, whatever name you give to a power that moves through us, I don't necessarily see it as a hierarchical thing. It's definitely a supreme nature is, bigger than us and more powerful than us, but it moves through us. I don't think we're separate. And I was always very, very curious. I'm the daughter of an engineer, so I was brought up with why does it work that way? Not just how does it work, why does it work that way? And I I think my first encounter with yoga, I was 7 years old, and that's a very long time ago. My mother took me to a yoga class where this guy was wearing what I thought were pajamas. Of course, it was like a karate outfit or something. And he talked about gazing at candles and doing techniques of bringing water into the body and out of the body and using a neti pot and all this. And I was 7. I mean, my parents were not hippies. My son calls me a hippie because I was born in 1960, but they weren't hippies. And but it was a time when, if you think about the music of that time, the Beatles, for example, it was as if my parents had come through a war. My mother was born in 1939, my father was born in 1929, and he was a fighter pilot just after the war. And our lives were rich with their stories. And I think I was exposed to yoga very young, but it wasn't endorsed. It was very much a middle class upbringing where you went to school and you studied and you learned and you worked. And I met a chocolatier, a Belgian chocolatier, and spent 20 years working up to my elbows in chocolate. And I didn't know, and this is where spirit definitely played a bigger hand than me. I didn't know that I was working in a liquid crystal matrix. I had no idea what I was learning, none at all. Apart from beautiful flavors and making exquisite chocolates and honoring people who bought Belgian chocolates, and my Belgian mother-in-law was just this great teacher, and she believed in apprenticeships, and I would have to be 40 years in the business before I knew how to do anything. That kind of dedication. And then in the 90s, in the early 90s, around the time when you mentioned coming into somatic education, I became aware of a yoga practice as a physical thing. Because, of course, by that time it had changed. It was much more popular. And it was much more westernized. And I have the great good fortune to know Angela Farmer and Victor, her husband, who both work directly with Iyengar. And I was trained in the lineage of Vanda Scaravelli, which also was with Iyengar. So informed, but both Angela and Vanda brought this beautiful femininity to what was otherwise a very masculine form in the West. I'm not saying yoga is union, right? It's bringing together of everything. However, I do think in some situations we could say and be justified that it's got very caught up. It was Iyengar himself would describe that it was originally for young men in the army to help manage their energy and their sexual desires and their ability to self-organize and be disciplined to function in the army. And Angela tells the most beautiful stories of discovering the gentle feminine side. And basically through that work, I met Tom Myers. I came to Anatomy Trains. I started learning about fascia. Then I became a structural integrator. So I integrated movement and manual therapy. And as soon as I learned structural integration, I felt it was very loud. So I studied craniosacral therapy because I wanted to be able to whisper with my hands. And I found out by touching people and then working with John Sharkey in human dissection that, and I say this as a summary, we can delve wherever you want to go. I discovered that everything we've learned about anatomy and physiology and biomechanics in the West is fundamentally based in hard matter physics. And we're made of soft matter. And I was like, holy cow, now what? Like, seriously, I have such respect for science. I have such respect for learning. How are we working this out from hard matter physics? What in heaven's name is that about? And my own spiritual practice and my own experience deepened and expanded. And one day I was in an argument with an osteopath, and it was an argument. They were describing bending moment at the human knee to me. And it was a beautiful explanation. It was stunning. And I sat there and I went, yep, but it's wrong. Doesn't make sense of motion. Not human, it doesn't make any sense. And this osteopath got really annoyed, and she turned to two of the people that were there, one of whom is a brilliant Russian biomechanical specialist called Leonid Blyum, who's dedicated his life to working with and transforming children with cerebral palsy. Amazing man. And she said to one of the people we were with, will you please tell her she's wrong? And I looked and said, go on, tell me I'm wrong and tell me why I'm wrong. And the person there said, she's right, but she doesn't know why. And I looked at Leonid and I said, do you mind telling me what's going on? Leonid's a genius. I said, do you mind telling me what's going on? And he said, yes. He said, you've been up to your elbows in chocolate for 20 years of your life, and you don't know why you know. You don't even know what you know. But your being resonates with a liquid crystal matrix. And the human body, any living creature, is made of a liquid crystal matrix. The end. But you understand it in spite of yourself. You understand it because of what you've done for the last however long. And how you're going to articulate that in application to the human body or the human being will be another thing. And it won't include bending moment at the human knee because there isn't any. It's a gorgeous theory that you could apply to a robot, but it doesn't fit human beings because humans being are made of soft matter. So the rules of soft matter physics exclude bending moment at the knee.
That's beautiful. So many things that I have listened here that resembles a lot of my own path. I also started with Iyengar senior teachers, and I also moved in 1998, 1999 to a movement that it was really incorporating the feminine side, the goddess, into the view, into the whole view, the cosmology of Hatha Yoga through tantric, more goddess-oriented wisdom. And that also brought me into a softer side, a softer listening, a softer feeling, and a way of understanding that it was more a flow than a structure, more like a matrix. And as well, I don't know, listening to you and the chocolate and the chocolate place where you were working and having this imprint of the process of making chocolate, like resembling fascia. I also went into, very formal, very interesting in New York City. I did a New York, a 1-year teacher training. And the woman who gave us the kinesiology and anatomy, she was a very important kinesiologist in New York. She wrote several books, and she was the one who talked about us for the fascia and started opening our minds. But then years after that, I went into the melt method. Do you remember the melt method?
I know Sue Hitzman very well. She's very dear to me.
Exactly. So I explored the melt method a lot, and I went into this in this inquiry of why I am pressing this ball in my foot, in the left foot, and then my right cervical will pop, or things like that. That I was starting to pay attention to that, and then when I was living close to an ashram in the Catskill Mountains in New York State, I rent a room in a cabin in the woods, and the guy who rented me was an amazing upfront contemporary naturopath doctor who was also a body worker. He used to do body work, very deep, like 2-hour massage in a very small section of the body, and it was only fascia. It was like super soft, like if he was trying to take out a masking tape, or from a crystal, like so soft. And he used to give me this massage every day for 1 year because he wanted. There was this bond with him. He taught me about many things, naturalism, like how to make remedies for whatever illness through plants and through mushrooms and through many things. So there was another level of, it's not just a biomechanical thing that my right cervical will pop if I massage my left foot. It was something else. It was like, oh my God, my emotions live here, right? But then it kept unfolding because I was paying attention to it. So then I realized that, well, something happened 3 years ago. I had this not a glimpse. I have had glimpses of awakened awareness throughout my life, because I have been very serious about, like, I wanted to know the truth of what I am and what is in the most of my capability. So I had many glimpses spiritually, specifically starting when I read The Power of Now in 1998, when Eckhart Tolle was releasing it from Canada. And I actually have the first copy of it. So, but that book brought me into my ashram environment, brought me completely, directly into non-identification with thoughts. And that also brought a whole new experience about fascia, because that glimpse was very strong in 1998. And then 3 years ago, it was very steady, very like awake awareness somehow hasn't left the show. It's up front. It is here as just presence, as just being, and just feeling. And that came because I took out everything I learned from yoga, took out everything about identification with any system, psychology, psychotherapy, somatic, whatever. And I just started laying down and relaxing as deep as possible. Like, I started calling these practices the letting go practices. Like, I want to let go more. Can I let go more? Like, being very honest with myself. Can I let go more? Not into a sleep, just into awareness that is aware of letting go in a deeper and a deeper and a deeper and a deeper level. And my body started to vibrate the whole spectrum of physical places and inside. And now, right then, I thought I was communicating with a spirit or something, like an inner divine guide that would talk to me with feeling, with vibrations and sensations.
Yeah.
But then when I listened to your podcast, when I listened to you, I was like, oh my God, it's my fascia.
Mhm.
And it's divinity to me.
I agree in many ways. And I think what's so fascinating is that, and this is the hard part, because people are often listening for an argument, one side of an argument or the other side of an argument. And one of the things I think that's available to us now, particularly with AI and SI, synthetic intelligence, as it's called, is the recognition that what I call our bioemotional intelligence is already there, that we've created something out of something we already are. And so many people have this idea that AI is the work of these geniuses and SI is the next thing for the next level of genius. And I'm like, yeah, but you're already that. You already have this exquisite liquid crystal interface that actually works more like the screen on your tablet or your mobile phone already at the interface of every cell. And we can't imagine it, Dhruva, because there's 70 trillion cells in each one of us. I mean, if a cell was a second, 70 trillion adds up to 30 million years. I mean, not exactly, but there's math in one of my books about it. It's like, hang on a second, you cannot imagine the multitude of interfaces going on in here. And we didn't have the capacity to express that amazing genius, that interface, that spirit that is us. Because we've lived for, let's say, the last 2,000 years for sure, in what some people call the age of reason. Very dominated by what Ian McGilchrist, the neuroscientist and psychiatrist, very, very brilliant mind, says is the domain the left brain prefers, or the domain the left brain organizes brilliantly. He's very clear about not segregating the brain into two halves. However, each hemisphere has major roles. They both need each other. they both need the connecting tissue between them in the corpus callosum. Yes, I get all that. But let's just say, and this goes back to what you just said, the thinking mind, the reasoning mind, the progress of argument was the ladder and the framework that we've all used to seek to do something that we call making sense of our world. And anyone working purely intuitively, after obviously they were the Crusades, when intuition in the Western world was earmarked or hallmarked for, it was a reason to have someone. The Crusades were, our grandmothers were burnt at the stake for witchcraft. But before all that, during all that, in one example of many, Native American Indian wisdom, for example, the natural intuition of the feminine nature, i.e., the more intuitive aspect of the right hemisphere of the brain, is revered. Now, I am not making sexist or gender-based statements here. Please, whoever's listening, understand me. I'm talking about, we're coming from yoga to start, at least at the beginning of this conversation. And yoga is about the union, the unifying, the real time now, present process of living as unifying process.
Yes.
This is where I think the magic can be found, because what we're saying is fascia, they're having great problems scientifically. And please trust me, because I know a lot of the scientists up to their elbows in this argument, a lot of them. I've spoken to them personally. I'm not one of them because I've chosen to step back. They're finding huge difficulty defining fascia. The classical definition of fascia is a dissectable sheet or sheath. Really? Great, whatever. The actual word fascia comes from, it was referred to a sheath of sticks wrapped around an axe that were tied in a crisscross manner. And John Sharkey does a very beautiful piece on this, because it's a symbol. It's actually on a lot of coinage and what's it called? Not symbolic artistry. I can't remember, but I can't remember the name. I'm so sorry. But when there's certain artists who make heraldic artistry,
Okay.
where very beautiful symbols are created for family crests and coins and notes. The American currency has, it's called a fascia, and and the number of sticks around the axe represented the number of people that you were responsible for as a lord or a nobleman. And that indicated your prowess in the hierarchy of responsibility culturally. So the higher level of nobleman, the more sticks would be sheathed together and crisscrossed in their wrapping of the fascia that represented you. And if you look for heraldic references in architecture, you can still see this today. It's very beautiful.
Wow.
And this I understand because it represented the binding together, the responsibility for, the authorization of, and nothing in the human body happens without fascia, because what that word, whether it's the right word or not, it's a very debatable point, but that the fascia is everywhere, it's ubiquitous, but it's not a thing, it's not a system, it's a liquid crystal matrix, which means it's everywhere. It's the architecture of many things on a spectrum from harder to softer, soft matter. It's all soft matter. And what's so exquisite is the deeper we go into considering its geometry,
Interesting.
the more we uncover and discover about force transmission. So I'm going to hand this word over to you to see what happens with this word, because this is like fizzy to me. This is like dropping one of those gorgeous fizzy things in water and they... The human body is designed to manage forces moving through it. It is a force transmission architecture in motion. And its structure is designed to manage the forces moving through it. The force of love, the force of ground reaction force from the ground every time we step on it, the force of motion, the force of energy. Those forces move through this force transmission architecture as a fluid matrix, not a liquid. It's a liquid crystal, which is different. And these are distinctions that we don't have in our language when we talk about the body. This is not standard. I mean, it is in some circles, but you still get yourself in a pickle because everybody wants to be right about what they've been doing. And the more I study, I think you're going to say the same. The more I study, the bigger my questions are, the bigger my curiosity. And one piece, I know there's so many gems in here we can talk about, but one piece that Ian McGilchrist just left me with my mouth open, and that is that the right brain, the right hemisphere, loves curiosity, loves archetype over stereotype. Stereos being fixed, archetype meaning a version of the original. And we have both. We need both, but fascia will not be reduced to a stereotype. It's expressed uniquely in our archetypal patterns. And they are emergent properties. And proprioception, which is the sense that is given to the fascia, or the sensory awareness assigned to the fascia matrix, the sixth sense, as it's sometimes called, is resident in more right brain awareness. So it's calling us to counterbalance this reasoning domination into the experienced awareness in the present moment. We have what was, we have what is, and we have what if. And we live in that. My very dear friend Shane McDermott, you've heard him on my podcast, he says it's like a Mobius loop. History, mystery, magic in the middle, and the magic of now. And you've referred to that with Eckhart Tolle. And I just think we're swimming in something so much more powerful than we realize. And I really admire your work of letting go, letting go, letting go. And at the same time, how do we do this in real time, in the physical, as dynamic, aware beings that are walking a path of force transmission in a real world? Can we get real?
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know. Can we?
Well, yeah, that's I don't know that will happen massively soon, but I think there's a big flower right now.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, opening a podcast or in that time a magazine for about like the nature of waking up, the nature of awakening to our true nature would be just a blasphemy or something like you are an alien or it will not have any following because very few people would resemble with their own experience. But right now it's incredible. And I am not a New Age guy. I mean,
Me neither.
I am not a New Age guy. I am not against science or I am not against reason. I am not against my left side of the brain. I am not against anything because the right side of the brain, it's not against anything.
Exactly.
Because the spirit is not against anything.
No.
So
againstness is such hard work, because what I think happens with againstness, and we have it, we're born with it out of fear. And I think if we can find a way to feel safe in ourselves, which I think is possible.
Yeah.
I know we're very in love with trauma. I'm not being rude. I've got my traumas. They're very precious to me. And I also know that I can breathe through them. I can see them as crystals in the matrix that I can dissolve. I can resolve. And there's ways to do that. And they don't always work. And we search for other ways because we are such incredible beings, spiritual beings having a physical experience. And while we're having that physical experience, I personally believe that the fascia is the interface of spirit, animating the matter of us in our pattern prototype. Because we are each a prototype. There is no other Dhruva. There is no other Joanne. Many people would say, thank goodness. There is no other you, whoever is listening. There is only one. You only occupy one place at one time, all the time. Everyone is a prototype.
Totally.
And it's like, oh, so none of us fit the stereotype, correct? All of us are a mixture of archetypes, correct? Obviously. That's not like rocket science. I don't sound like a genius. I'm not going to get the Nobel Prize for saying that. Everyone is a unique prototype. Oh my goodness, so what does that mean? I think it's something about, in the eyes of the divine, every one of us is an exquisite soul. And in my world, not one soul will be lost. The teachings I follow, not one soul will be lost.
Of course. Joanne, I have always been somehow karmically, or like, my conditions and circumstances in life, in where I have lived, I have always been kind of upfront of things, especially in the area of like the body and spirit and mind, and health and stuff like that, because I started very young and I received very good quality information in order to start from there, my own inquiry. So right now, one of my biggest crusades is in order for putting at test this experiment you are asking me, like this question: do you think we will be able to be into this allowing, into changing from the automatic mode of thinking and doing into being and sensing while we are awake, while we are talking, while we are just walking, when we're breathing? Because this is just an expansion of this capability of being aware and having a delight of whatever it's coming into the screen of consciousness, So my crusade is, first of all, we have to normalize waking up to our true nature, not in a negative sense. We have to normalize talking about this, because it's just as natural as as lying down as a toddler and then bringing your chest up, and then maybe going into 4-point pose, and then maybe doing this. We say in Mexico, gatear, like crawling. And then the next step is to stand up and just wiggle there, and then sit, and then try, and then you walk, and then you run, and then maybe you end doing acrobatics, and doing apnea, or I don't know. But in the same way, it is as natural as that. It is just a next step into our operating system. We have an operating system, and it's updating. Let's forget about the religious talk and the jerk. Yeah, it is just a change of operating system. And for me, the practice that evolved through just letting go, letting go, letting go, I call it just allow anything to be as it is, everything to be as it is, allow. And especially this is the bridge of somatic and spirituality, is one of my also my crusade points, is like, if you learn to deeply relax and to deeply allow whatever it comes into your awareness, because you are awareness, and you learn to move your identification that it was previously into thinking, analyzing first, not thinking as a bad thing or analyzing as a bad thing, but screening everything through it, to having a direct experience, having a direct welcoming of much more bigger and bigger information. It's a bigger bandwidth, and then it comes to it comes to nurture even more the experience, the left side of the brain. You can say, what a beautiful sunset, darling. Oh yeah. But what happens if you hold your stance and just let it everything get in, everything inside, in silence. If we could have this ability.
Yeah.
And then we can say, oh my God, what a beautiful sunset. And then nothing is lost. Everything was united. It was this yoga, this union of feminine, of masculine. So in order to gain, because I remember your question, in order to gain, and your talk, what you were saying, how to gain security,
Safety.
how to gain safety, how to gain safety for ourselves. So in this allowing, you learn to recognize. I have developed practices for this. You learn to recognize that what you are, what you really, really, really are, you are the one. It is the same thing, but it's not a thing. It's the same thing that you are looking for. Is that what you're looking for first? And then it is a source of safety. It is a source of safety. What you really, really, really are has never been wounded and will never be wounded.
Absolutely.
And it will never die, But this has to be experienced at first. And then from this safety, then you learn to allow the world to be as it is, your emotions as they are, your feelings and thoughts as they are, and the world as they are, society as it is. This doesn't mean, because people that sometimes write me, oh, but what about the war? No, I am against the war. I mean, I don't agree with war. I don't agree with violence, but I accept that it is happening. And that's very, very, very different. I accept that this guy is showing me how I am not.
It's a fascinating process. I hear people say things like, we are here having a human experience, checking out different options and finding out what doesn't work and what does work for the collective. In a pod of dolphins, if a young dolphin does something that would somehow injure or cause problems for the pod, the mother will swim over the youngster and drive it to the ocean floor and block its blowhole. She won't suffocate it, but she'll scare it. And within millimeters of its ability to get to the surface and breathe. And she will remind it that everything it does must be for the good of the pod, and certainly doing something that damages the collective, there is a price. It's not a crime and punishment thing. We do that. That's our reasoning. It's no, this is not what works.
No,
For the
of
highest
course.
good of all concerned, this is not what works. And I think I love what you said about that we don't die and we can't really be wounded. It doesn't seem that way. I get it. It doesn't seem that way. But I think we limit through our thinking and reasoning and childlike assumptions that we make when we're very, very little, especially in the emotional realm. I was reading recently, I've been reading Jill Bolt Taylor's book, The Right Side, A Stroke of Insight. She's a utterly brilliant neuroscientist who had a stroke on the left side of the brain and experienced being in total bliss and completely inarticulate in that bliss. So she's in this place of the two hemispheres not working to give her the insight. She's recovered and she's extraordinary. She's absolutely extraordinary. But one of the gems in her book, one of many, I can't recommend it enough, is that the limbic brain doesn't mature. So what that means is that the conclusions we made about not being safe when we were little tiny things are lodged in our emotional conclusions, our emotional decisions, our emotional rules that we made for ourselves when we were little beings. And I think part of our journey as we mature is to parent ourselves, parent the inner child in us. I'm very lucky. I get to do a lot of work with people in archetypal patterns, physical archetypes, as well as somatic, as well as solic. And when you identify the child archetypes in you, and I think that we all have many little children that all stood there saying, no, I made myself safe that day by doing this. And that's what we're going to do in life. And we're still doing it. And I think that part of our work, part of the game or the journey of life school is parenting those inner children and those feelings and coming to a place of accepting them the way that they're, not correcting them, not redoing them, not judging them, not against-ing them. If there's such a word, we've made it up. We've just put a new word in the English language, Dhruva. We're not against-ing. We are. May I share a little tiny story?
Yeah, no, please. I'm
It
delighted.
really amuses me. My mother brought my sister and I up, every day there was something magical. Magic was the big thing. I have the magical child archetype. It's my major child archetype. And along with the storyteller, obviously. And the magical child, she would take us, she called it puddle bashing. So we weren't allowed to go out in our very best shoes and go near water if it had been raining. But as soon as we'd finished being dressed up to do whatever we had to do that was important, goodness knows, she would take us home and we could put on our jeans and our rubber boots and go out and puddle bash. We could bash the puddles and we could come back dripping. And that was somehow magical. We had upside down days where we'd have breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast. Or we would have picnics upstairs if it was raining on the landing by all the doors, and she'd make each door the entrance to a magic, which is amazing. So when I was about 5 or 6, I was with my sister and we were at an aunt's house, a house of an aunt of ours. She had 2 or 3 children. So there were 5 kids altogether and 2 adults, my mother and her friend. And my mother got in her car with 2 of the kids, and my aunt got in her car with 2 of the kids, and each one of them thought I was with the other one. And I was left on the stairs, this very dark staircase that she had in her first house, this aunt. And I was terrified. It was almost completely dark, and I'd sat there not knowing whether to go up or down. And I was, oh my God, now what? And I remember being, as a little tiny bean, absolutely and completely terrified. And it was, my mother found us, and she took us home, and she told the poem from A.A. Milne. Halfway down the stairs is a stair where I sit. There isn't any other stair quite like it. I'm not at the bottom. I'm not at the top. So this is the stair where I always stop. Halfway up the stairs isn't up and it isn't down. It isn't in the nursery. It isn't in the town. And all sorts of funny thoughts run around my head. It isn't really anywhere. It's somewhere else instead. Now, that is one of the poems. I think it's in Now We Are Six or When We Were Very Young by A.A. Milne about Christopher Robin. And my mother told this story a lot after that. And wasn't I clever and brave for discovering this place halfway up the stairs? And to this day, when I am nervous or worried or excited, or I just don't know what to do with myself, you will find me sitting halfway up my stairs, because it's a place that I can sit and find the magic. Now, fast forward to, I don't know what it was, 7 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I had a hairdresser, and he happened to be the hairdresser of the family that bought the house that Christopher Robin grew up in. And he arranged for me to go to their house. They agreed that I could come and see. And I'm dial with Kanga and Tigger and Roo and Winnie the Pooh and Rabbit and all, and Christopher Robin, where he actually sat on. I've sat on that stair. I've sat on that actual stair that poem's about. And in that moment, nothing would separate me or part me from that so-called trauma, that wound of childhood, because I transmuted that into a place of safety through my mother bringing magic to me. And there's no such word, but it's like magicalizing something. And as you know, one of my books is Myofascial Magic in Action. And one of the so-called senior person in the, whatever that means, in the world of fascia commented on, absolutely denigrated, publicly ridiculed me for using the word magic and how inappropriate it was, which was a great thing because our own colleagues use it, and it's like, But my response, because a lot of people defended me, and I just said, don't defend me, please, don't worry. Just send love and wish magic in this person's life. Because if you don't have magic in your life, however that occurs for you, you're in a dark place. And I would prefer you were in a light place, a light-filled place. And that, why I'm sharing that is, you talked about our wounds. It wasn't a wound. It was an opportunity. I could now be terrified of dark spaces, terrified of stairs, justifiably claustrophobic. But my clever mummy, who's still with us and still doing magic things, she's amazing. She transmuted it. She helped me transmute it into a superpower. And I promise you, when I'm writing a book and I'm lost with something, or I'm asked to deal with a challenge, halfway up the stair or halfway down the stairs, the stair where I sit is halfway up to me. I go there and I swear that my whole body transmutes into a place of empowerment. I call in spirit. I ask for the clearing. I breathe. I pray. Everything. But it's not just about the facts of the situation. It's the magic we can bring to it. And I believe we can actually have an influence on what we're creating. Not control. It's not the same thing. Influence in our energy field and our feedback, much, much greater than we believe, generally. And I'm not talking about conjuring, although that's an amazing thing as well. I'm talking about awareness. I love that. That made you laugh. Spirit's present, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it was an ecstatic point of venture where you got like the whole thing comes a full circle, even if we didn't start it formally in awareness. But yes, I totally agree what you say. Um, what I do, I agree also, and that's the point I want to make. I want to a little bit to elaborate, but yes, our main goal, it is not waking up. The main goal is that waking up is just another process. And the following process is our ability to come back to rescue the exiles, our inner wounded child, or inner opportunities of loving, of being present as
Absolutely.
awareness, and then allowing and giving the safety these old memories, these ancient memories have inside us, almost as if they were entities on their own. But they're not separate entities because there's no separation. They're just fractured, apparently fractured pieces in our psyche that they are waiting for the comeback of what we are as presence, as loving presence, welcoming awareness that say, I came to you purposely to find you and to let you know that everything is fine, that you can unburden yourself and come with me to this present moment. You will never be alone and it makes sense with the whole poem you said. You will never be alone because I am here. And there's no need to go up the stair. There's no need to go down the stair. Right in the middle, that's where you are. That's where we always are. Our home, our ground is right below our feet all the time,
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I want to share something with you about chocolate, Dhruva. You'll love this. When you have a vat of chocolate, liquid chocolate that you've melted, and you want to make chocolates, you want to make it crystalline so that you can turn it into a chocolate rabbit and give it to somebody for Easter, for example. It has to be tempered. First it's melted, then it has to be tempered. And that means it has to be heated and cooled, a bit like steel has to be tempered, so that it stiffens appropriately, so that you can mold with it. And all of these are called, you'll love this, all of these are called emergent properties. Because these emergent properties on their own don't have the power of what they can complete and create together. That's the definition of an emergent property, is when two elements without that property come together and that property becomes available out of their emergence and their convergence. It's just absolutely exquisite. And when you want to temper chocolate, the quickest way to temper chocolate is if you have some tempered chocolate and you throw it into the melted chocolate, it's seed crystals. They crystallize each other. They grow together. And when you were speaking just then, I had this vision of what you called a fracture that isn't a fracture. And I thought, oh my God, we think it's a bad thing. That's the seed crystal. And that's what allows the rest to join in that particular pattern on that particular day. And if the mold that you have is a rabbit, you're going to have a rabbit. And if the mold that you have is a horse, you're going to have a horse. And if it's an egg, you're going to have an egg. And you can create these exquisite, oh my God, I've got these ancient Belgian, really original handmade molds, and the drawings of them are amazing. Oh my God. And there's treasure in them, total side piece. But the magic in this is the idea that the seed crystallization allows a completely different organization and the possibility of something you couldn't have imagined.
Of course. Of course. And that is why nothing you do for about knowing yourself is an egoistic adventure, or venture. It's not an egoistic adventure, because you will be that temperate chocolate that a non-temperate nervous system, can hang with, and then crystallize itself with you. Because, as you said, the limbic system, it's not fully developed, but it's
It doesn't
developing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's developing through presence with other human beings, and through community, and through sharing, and through, the subliminal, the energetic, the fascia, the spirit. It's sharing information all the time.
All the time,
I love it.
every level. And when I'm very fortunate, I get to work with John Sharkey and with Paul Thornley and with everybody I know, whoever's listening to this, my love. And we get to work on people who've very generously donated their bodies to science in very different ways, sometimes fresh frozen, sometimes fixed, and sometimes teal fix, which is a subtle in between.
Okay.
And what we get to see in the finest detail, it's beyond belief, is the liquid crystal web between everything in the human body. Everything. It's everywhere.
Wow.
And it's not fluffy. It's liquid crystal. It's like egg white. It's more like egg white everywhere. And yet it can be more like bone when it's got high hydroxyapatite in it, and it's more like cartilage, which is like in the living body, it's a little bit like boiled egg white that has hyaline in it, and it's got all these different expressions when it's got these different mixtures, but it's in a complete continuum. And it isn't just soft and fluid. People talk about a liquid crystal matrix as if it's liquid. The only actual liquid in our bodies pretty much is urine. It's a byproduct. This is a gel sol quality of different viscosities, different densities, different types of fluids expressing on a spectrum of hardness to softness. So it's all soft tissue, even bone. And it speaks a language. And it's a language of hardness and softness, a language of stiffness and suppleness, a language of texture, roughness and smoothness. That's its language. And we talk about articulations in the body. And the more organized they are aligned with what we desire or seek to express, the more articulate they are considered. So in English, it's the same word.
Yes.
And for me, the congruency comes when I see it, and it's just usually joy or laughter as it's expressed, comes when the body is expressing in the same time frame as the being is expressing, and it meets another, and it's recognized as it is. There's just laughter, there's delight, there's reflection, there's sharing, there's loving, there's acceptance. And it becomes a harmonic. It becomes it's almost safe because of the sense of belonging that comes from sharing the experience. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. To me, it makes sense. I'm sure for many people in the community as well, and from the viewers, of course. It makes sense.
And it's just that simple place of, it's like, use my stair thing. So I'm sitting on the stairs and my son walks in and the front door opens and he says, "What are you doing there?" And I'm like, "Sitting on the stairs." And I'm completely at peace, right? I am
Yeah,
so at home.
of course, of course, of course.
This is my happy place.
Of course.
And he says, "What? Why are you sitting on the stairs?" And I say, "Because it's my happy place." What? It's just my happy place. There's no, you don't need to explain. There's no friction. There's no drama. There's no anything. There's just being present to your own beingness, whatever that is for you. And I think you said this earlier, that when we can just accept ourselves being ourselves where we are now and listen, anything can happen.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Joanne. I will go very short for closing and celebrating this episode with you. I remember I was in the night in the mountain with a monk. He was always almost in silence, and I asked him something that it was like hitting me inside myself about the nature of the universe, And I said, what is your experience? I was sure he was in a deep, peaceful place, what we call inside of him. But he said, can you see those old stars and all those galaxies and this whole thing? And I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. It's beautiful. He said, well, my experience is that they are inside me. The whole external universe is inside me. It's inside of what I am. And after that, I kept the conversation going. And at some point he said, awareness condensates from the subtlest to the hardest. But it never ends to be awareness. It is always there. It never loses any of its qualities. And it resembles me, this fascia way of being created, of the way of showing itself, like how many depths of liquidity is happening there, and magic and interface and weaving and mystery, So Joanne, I mean, I know we can talk for hours because
Obviously.
we're both very, very passionate, and I love it. And I want to thank you, Joanne Avison, for being here in this podcast. I'm looking forward to keep the conversation.
Love that.
And it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Joanne.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your patience. It's taken us a while to make it happen. And thank you for your listening. It's exquisite.
Likewise, Joanne. Have a beautiful night.
And you.
Bye.
Bye.